bringing our water providers together. We've kind of started looking at this even back in 2019, trying to see what the relationship was between all of you and how that relationship really works with the city, and what the city should be doing to support the work that you do, because what you provide to our residents is imperative and incredibly important, and it's very reflective of what it's like to live in Centennial and the quality of life that we're looking for here. So we're happy to have this opportunity for collaboration. We hope that moving forward, this kind of opens the door for us to all be able to continue to work together, plan together, and hopefully form some really great partnerships, that when there is opportunity to work on some type of an infrastructure project that's needed to service the citizens of Centennial, that you can count on us as being one of the allies to help you get that done. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Hattie Hensley, right? They get that right? Yes. With our group. And I hope, thank you all again for being here. It's great to have you, and we look forward to seeing what the day brings. Thank you.
Again, I just want to reiterate, thank you to everyone for coming out here today, and thank you, Mayor Pika, for your remarks. My name is Hattie, and we have been, with me along with my 4 other lovely interns, have been working with the City of Centennial for this summer, and this is our final deliverable. And we're really glad that you guys are all here, and we're going to have some great conversations. So I'm going to be introducing our first planner, David Kim. David is a planner 2 with the City of Centennial. With the city since 2021, David is responsible for a mix of long-range and current planning activities, including updates to the city's comprehensive plan and amendments to the city's land development. He has also worked on annexation projects and completed development review. So without further ado, here is David Kim.
So I'm going to hide behind the podium because that's my natural habitat when I'm speaking in front of city council and everything. So I'll be back here. Moving slides. Good morning, everyone. As Hattie said, my name is David King. I'm a planner 2 with the city. And I'm going to talk today about some of the city's long-range planning efforts. So I'll provide some background information, which might be some review for some people, might be some things that are new for others, on kind of what long-range planning is and why we're doing it. Then I'll touch on some of the various documents that the city has that guide our efforts. And finally, I'll discuss in some very broad strokes some large land use trends that we've seen changing and evolving in recent years, and how we anticipate those to continue to do so, and how that is resulting in some ongoing work on the city side to prepare for those changes, and hopefully have a great partnership with all of you throughout. What is long-range planning? Long-range planning is intended to guide physical growth and development, so that change that we see, the buildings that are coming, the roads that are built, in a strategic and intentional way. The work done through long-range planning is then the basis for property development. It's the basis for zoning decisions, for rezoning decisions, as well as amendments to the city's land development code, which contain the development standards for projects as they come forward. This slide contains some of the long-range planning documents that are used by city staff on a daily basis as we're considering what long-range planning looks like, as well as current planning. So at the top left is the city's comprehensive plan, Centennial Next, which was adopted in 2018. Within Centennial Next is also the future land use map, which is more of a visual representation of the future of land use within the city. The Trails and Recreation Plan and the Transportation Master Plan describe the vision for those specific topics within the city. So not necessarily a focus on land use, but more on trails and recreation, and then on our transportation network, our roads, our public transit, those types of things. And then sub-area plans on the bottom left Those provide a more focused level of detail for certain key areas. We have a number of sub-area plans in the city. There are two other documents that are listed here on this slide, including the city's strategic plan, which that's the overarching vision for the city to fulfill our mission, which is to provide exceptional service to the community. The strategic plan includes 6 goals and strategies that guide how the city invests time, money, and operations in service of that larger mission from a broader perspective than just land use. So that's every city department is included in that Centennial strategic plan, not just community and economic development. And then the final document that I've listed here is the Land Development Code. The LDC is the zoning document for the city, providing development regulations and as well as outlining process for development and redevelopment. So this is the true zoning document. The work done in all of those other planning documents inform what's contained in the Land Development Code, as well as any potential amendments that we would consider to that Land Development Code. That all comes from the other long-range planning documents that I listed here. So looking specifically at Centennial next, this is the city's clearest expression of long-range planning for land use. The comprehensive plan works in partnership with those other planning documents that I mentioned, like the Transportation Master Plan, sub-area plans, the Trails and Recreation Plan, but this is truly the foundational document for future land use within the city. Centennial Next also contains goals and strategies that articulate a vision for the city, and those strategies are then how those goals and how that vision can be achieved. So with that kind of brief grounding in some of Centennial's planning documents, I want to take a step back now from the city context and talk a little bit more generally about how land use has been changing and evolving in recent years. It's no secret that land use trends have been shifting over the past few years, and those changes have prompted what is a very typical analysis from city staff on our planning documents, but maybe even more so at this point, given all of the change that we've seen over the past 5 years or so. And that analysis is a deep dive into our guiding planning documents to ensure that we can both respond to changes that we've seen, as well as anticipate and prepare for future changes that are out there. So now I'll elaborate on some of those changes from a broader context without getting too specific to the city quite yet, and keeping it at a little bit of a higher level right now. So one of the trends that we've seen and we continue to anticipate is related to office space. There's simultaneously this less of a demand for office space, while at the same time a greater demand for what we can consider new, more amenity-filled offices. So in other words, kind of the older office, the older 2-story office walk-up building is not as desirable as it once was. There's fewer people coming into the office. There's fewer businesses that need that space. So they're struggling to find tenants for those locations. But we are seeing some new office buildings that are more amenity focused, having more to offer for employees that are something that is an attraction to come into the office rather than just going to your desk or going to your meeting room. There's a little bit more to offer there. So we're seeing this kind of interesting simultaneous demand while also seeing less of a need for some of our existing office space. We're also seeing transition of retail spaces. And this is not something new. This has been going on for a while. Certainly the pandemic had an impact on this, but we're seeing retail spaces transition from purely a consumer goods type of environment. You go in, you buy your products, and you leave towards potentially more something experiential. You want to have a memory when you leave a place after you shop there, after you consume there. And that's having some impact on what our retail centers look like, as well as the move towards online shopping and fulfillment that's continued to create different impacts on our retail centers and retail centers across the country. And then the final trend that I'll touch on here is housing. We're seeing an increased need for both housing stock, so that the number of units that we have available, as well as the diversity of those choices. So in some instances, that's a move away from just a single family detached offering. In other cases, that's a move away from just a for rent multifamily unit. There's a desire for what is termed that missing middle housing, that in in the continuum that is from single family detached to multifamily rental. And we're seeing that continued need across the country and particularly throughout the Denver metro area. So with those national trends in mind, I want to turn us back towards Centennial and then talk a little bit about some of the impacts that we're seeing of those trends within the city. So for that first topic of office related trends, a large section of the city's office stock is growing older and is attracting redevelopment interest, including from potential residential developers. So there could be a potential big land use shift there. We're also seeing a concentration of new amenity-filled office spaces in places like the district along I-25, where there's a chance to have more dynamic office environments rather than it being spread out quite as much as we've seen in the past. We're also seeing Dove Valley, so the area where we are today, continuing to be the new development engine of the city. We're seeing a lot of development projects come in here, and that's cultivating a strong economic base for the city, and seeing a lot of that light industrial fulfillment, wholesale type of operations finding their home here in Dove Valley. For retail, many of the potential candidates for redevelopment in the city are our retail centers that are looking for a transition point, maybe from a grocery or similarly type anchored center, or a center that lacks one of those anchors currently, looking to transition to the next phase of development, which can take a variety of forms, whether that's the introduction of housing in those areas, more dining options being provided, or more experience-based ventures. So that can run the wall of that. I think on the west side of the city, there's a basketball social house where you can come and play basketball and have dinner, and it's an experience that you can take away from it rather than just being a typical retail environment. And finally, for the housing topic, the housing trend, housing availability and affordability continue to be key questions for the city, and there are some ongoing city-led projects to potentially address both of those questions that have been underway for a while now, and we're continuing to explore the best way to address those questions, potentially including with the allowance of accessory dwelling units or ADUs within the city. So the ongoing work that we have, so that those kind of trends that I talked about specifically for Centennial, these are some of the areas where we have some ongoing work and where we're hoping that we can continue to further the dialogue that we're starting today, as these projects are in early stages and early conversations, and we certainly want to be partners in those conversations. So for Centennial Next, the city's comprehensive plan, the city is continuing to analyze that plan to ensure that it is both equipped for future and current land use trends, with a significant portion of that analysis dedicated to the future land use map, which again is that visual representation of what land use trends could look like in the city. And there's being specific attention paid to that on how we can expect the city to look, and how we want the city to look for the next 20 years or so. This work looks to ensure that the city remains on the front foot in the land use realm, and then can clearly lay out and express its vision for the future for both residents and for the private sector. For the land development code, there's ongoing work to ensure that the zone districts contained within the LDC can facilitate the type and style of development and redevelopment that is desired by those evolving land use trends. Within that sphere, there's specific attention being paid to our office zone districts and our residential zone districts, and how these two interact with each other, how they intersect with each other, and how the future of land use is going to look for both of those zone districts. In addition, we are also analyzing and reviewing our landscaping standards to make sure that they remain up to date, both in terms of across the city, across zone districts, as well as for particular zone districts, making sure that we have the appropriate standards for the type of development that's going to be seen in those zone districts, so we can make sure that our landscaping requirements are not only up to date, but appropriate for Colorado here and moving forward. As I mentioned, both of these kind of large buckets, the Centennial Next work and the land development code work, are in fairly early stages, and we look forward to continuing the discussion that we're going to have here today more in different settings, but hoping to have good results from it. That's all I have for the group today. I'll be happy to take any questions if that's what the interns would like me to do.
Yes. We're opening the floor to Q&A right now, so if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. Oh, come on, guys, don't make me take tables.
Okay, I'll ask the burning question. So we're all here for a water and sanitation summit, but I didn't hear water or sanitation mentioned. Which of your plans actually is trying to pull that in?
So within Centennial Next, we have some sections in our goals and strategies about water usage, about how we want to see, or about the future of water within the city. This is one of those interesting scenarios where we talk about what can the city control, what can the water districts control, and that's, I think, where the planning group I know is very excited to have this conversation, so that we can hopefully have a little bit more certainty about where we want to see those things going within our planning documents, while also knowing that we can direct people, direct applicants to the appropriate people, to the appropriate districts in timely manner and early in the process, so that we can have those conversations early on. But I would say that the kind of larger trends that I'm talking about might not, say water related to them, but it's in our mind as we're considering about how these things work, like the office and residential conversion conversation. Water is certainly going to be a key consideration there, and it's something that we want to make sure our zoning code can handle.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you, David, for giving us a little overview of the future development on Centennial. Okay, I want to reiterate, thank you to David. Thank you for sharing all that information. And then thank you all for being here. I'm Kayla Engler. I'm another one of the interns that you'll meet today. I am introducing our next speaker, Patrick Gunn. He is the CIP and Street Rehab Manager and has been with the City of Centennial and Jacob's team for just about 1 year. In his role, he oversees construction within the city right away from both private contractors, public utilities, and city projects. Additionally, he ensures the various contractors, projects, and governmental agencies are coordinated to mitigate conflicts as the work is executed. So, very excited to hear you speak.
All right, thank you very much. A lot of familiar faces out there. So luckily, you guys have eaten breakfast, so no throwing at me as I talk through this. But as it was mentioned, my team and myself, we review and approve all right-of-way permits within the city. That includes work done by various metro districts, sanitary and water districts within the city. We also review the permits as they're executed out in the field. So we'll review traffic control, the work that's going on, and the pavement restoration and landscape restoration that occurs as the work is completed as well. But even before that, what we'd like to do is coordinate with these various agencies to see how we can better fit their work and our work together, mainly related to our pavement preservation program and what they're doing from a utility standpoint. Because as they construct the roadway and use the right of way, the goal is that we start from the bottom and then work our way up. Utilities are always at the bottom. So as we coordinate that, we look at as they come in with their plans and we share ours, we look at our CIP plans and compare it to what their long range plans are. We review that in relationship to other utilities that are within that area. And then finally, we also look at it in terms of other developments, private developments that are going to be ongoing within the area. One interesting thing that we're starting with Southgate and Denver Water is that we're coordinating the pavement restoration of their work with our mill and overlay program that we're doing every year. And what that does, it keeps their contractors that are very good at underground work, it keeps them doing what they do best, which is underground utility work. And then they would, through the IGA, they would effectively pay us to do their pavement restoration. And then we have more control over that contractor and over that quality of work that's being implemented. That's something that we're in negotiations with and talking with Southgate and the water as that moves forward. So it's kind of an interesting wrinkle that we're bringing to the table as we move forward. Some notable projects that we've done in the past that are fairly big one with water and sanitary, but the one I'm bringing up is the intermediate pressure gas line in Holly, Arapahoe that was recently discovered to have a leak. This was last fall. I believe on a Thursday, a resident that was just traveling through noticed a gas smell as they drove through the intersection. When Excel went out there, they noticed that the two valves were leaking within the intersection itself. Obviously, we'd love to have that planned so that we could address it appropriately, but knowing that severity of the issue and because of the traveling public, having them involved in that situation as well, because of the arterial and arterial roads that Holly and Arapahoe are, the decision was made to shut down the intersection to allow Excel to address the issue safely and quickly and minimize impacts on our residents. Another notable project that we've recently started is with Southgate for the Yosemite water main reconstruction and replacement. That one is a tricky one because of the size of the water main that's being replaced and what's going back in, a 18 and 20-inch water main right down the center of a arterial road on the east side, on the right through down the middle of Yosemite. What we did was we attempted to mitigate traffic issues as much as we can. Additionally, we tried to lessen the impact of neighboring businesses. And I know for me, my wife works at Arrow, so I don't want to have that pillow talk. But and then additionally, we'll want to make sure that the contractor in Southgate, in this case, communicates with the HOAs in the area, residents and businesses to try to let them know what's going on, what that timeline looks like, and how they're going to be impacted on a short span and also throughout the entire project. That's kind of what myself and my team do. We have a lot of interesting things moving forward. I really think that what we're doing from a pavement IGA standpoint is going to help out the contractors and help out the city as we move forward. But yeah, otherwise, I'm open to any questions, any shots, any comments that we may have as far as we complete our work.
Apparently I'm the question.
Very good. See what you got.
I'm gone to go with Aurora Water, by the way. When you're working with so many different entities underground, do you guys have to keep a pretty good GIS file in order to keep track of all the different utilities and different contacts?
We do
For
not
every
have
location.
GIS files of other utility providers in our hands, but we do have very good contacts in case we need to have that information. There's been discussion of bringing that in-house, but it's really a maintenance of that information that we're concerned about and ensuring that we get the correct information when we need it. So if that does happen, we always reach out to the utility provider, especially if there's, yourself and Southgate may be in the same right of way. So that's the discussion that we have as soon as an issue arises. If there's water on the pavement, we would call both entities to try to get people out there to figure it out. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
I know we have places in Aurora where it's like, who do we call? Wait, who is this?
Mhm.
So I can only imagine how much harder it is here where
It's
we've
interesting.
got so many providers.
Quick question, Dave from Southgate. Is there gonna be an effort to upgrade or solidify the specifications? I think the difficult things for utilities is changes that happen after bidding and awarding. Because then we're behind the 8 ball with contractors, et cetera, right? And really, to be honest, you're the experts, right? And we're good with whatever your specifications and requirements are. But to change them after bidding is a real difficult thing. And so I didn't know if there was going to be an effort maybe to say at least this is going to be this year's specs, right? For 24 or whatever. And then if there's going to be upgrades, redo it in 25, because we bid things and contractors look at specifications and they bid in that for those specifications, and then when they're changed, it's an automatic change order. And we're behind the 8 ball with that, because we don't have a lot of options. So,
And we're always looking to improve our specifications to ensure we're getting the best out of it. What you're mentioning specifically, is that we've noticed over the past 3 or 4 years that the mainline, we're allowing you to use native in your mainline construction. However, when you go back in, when your contractor comes back in and does the actual service connections, due to the size of the hole that they're creating, they cannot get that compacted effort within that smaller hole. Therefore, we asked you to put in aggregate base course. I had to think of the name.
and again, we have no problem at all with that.
Totally agree.
Yeah, but it's just difficult after it's already bid and awarded.
And that's something that we'll be looking at towards the end of summer, fall, once construction kind of starts settling down, looking to really kind of finesse that.
Yeah.
To make it fair to you guys.
Appreciate
it. Believe I saw one more hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, if people are interested in hearing more about our upcoming roadway plans or talking more about coordination between maintenance, any suggestions on where they should start?
Definitely start with me. You can call the 8,000 number. They'll get you to me. We can easily have those conversations. I know Kalish and a lot of other agencies have my phone number directly, and a lot of familiar faces, which is great. And we have shared what we were doing next year, and then the years to come. We have a roadmap, a very rough roadmap right now that we're hoping to get solidified as we go through the budget season this fall. All right. Any other questions? Very good. Thank you very much.
Hey everyone, my name is Riley Jo Holland, and before we begin our next little time of roundtable discussions, just so we're like have some room and we're spread out because this is going to be a lot of like conversation based around the table. I'm going to give everybody some time. If you have trash, if you want to throw that away, now is your chance, just to clear your space. Also, it's going to give us time to set up our easels. We're going to have a lot of collaboration, and then in 3-4 minutes, we'll start again. And as people are moving around, we would love for everybody to talk to people that they didn't already know or they're not in their same organization with. So we're gonna ask everybody to shuffle the names a little bit. There's 2 tables up here. Trying to find somewhere new. I know you have a lot of stuff and you kind of settled, but we just want to meet new people and allow everybody to be different organizations. Awesome. Okay, so first roundtable discussion, we're going to be talking about future planning and looking forward, but in doing this, we need to also look towards the past and see what's changed since then. So what were your priorities in the early 2000s? How do they compare to your current priorities as an organization? And how do you envision your district or organization to kind of change in the next 10 years? We would love if you guys could collaborate on this, talk about it with your group, jot a few notes down on your sticky notes and post them up to your boards. And then in about 10 minutes, we'll have some time to share and everybody can share with a bigger group. Great.
Something really cool from somebody else, we'd like to give you a chance to like share what they shared with you, and what you might have learned, so. Anybody can start us off, or I can start calling on tables, either way.
Well, I'll start. Nothing's better than an elected official start talking, right? How much time do we have? Just kidding. So at our table, obviously, we have a lot of people from Centennial, and Centennial works with partners. And so what we heard from our SEMSWA partner is that we're making progress in learning what didn't work and what we're gonna improve on going forward, right? Because SEMSWA didn't start until 2006. So what didn't work then and how we're improving, but then also how does that partnership relationship work? But I really appreciate that Aurora Water is at our table, because Aurora is really in the forefront of some of the changes that have been made with, you know, not allowing golf courses, not allowing front yard bluegrass. And so it's just really interesting to hear that dynamic, and that there's been pushback, obviously, but they've all been on board to do what's right to conserve water.
Way to go, Councilwoman.
Do I still have more time? I'll keep talking.
Way to go, sir. Well,
Go ahead.
Hi. Councilwoman Alston. So sitting here with the Water, Councilmember Moon asked a very important question for us as leaders of the city regarding the pipelines, the water lines that go through our city and how that affects us when we're doing development. So I guess it goes back to the beginning of the presentation when we were talking about LDC and building and what we're doing. The setbacks that's required when you have a pipe going to our city affects how we're building. And so we're trying to get more information regarding what are we going to do with pipes that's been there forever. How do we go about building and doing things that we'd like to do in our city when we have so many different partners with our water entities? So that's where we're at. So thank you.
Thank you. And I think we have time for one more person to share, then we'll move on.
In a nutshell.
Eight gone.
In a nutshell.
I just want to say we were very happy when the City of Centennial formed in the early 2000s, that water was one of those things we didn't have to worry about. I have a lot of very jealous mayors in a lot of other cities that are very, but you guys don't run that. You're so lucky. You don't have to build that stuff. You don't have to take care of that infrastructure. The 10 years out, my bigger concern is that as you guys, everyone is pushing to conserve water, where are you going to get the money that you need to maintain your infrastructure? And I think it's like the opposite side of the positive coin. It's like, oh, it's great to conserve water. We've seen that, we've done that in Colorado. But you do that where if you charge for water, and you're in the business of selling water, where are you going to get your funding? So I think that's something we have to take up to the next even legislative and state level to make sure that everyone understands the importance of investing in that infrastructure. Just because we use less of it doesn't mean the infrastructure is changing because of that. So.
You know, our income has been down this year quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
Because of all the rain.
But our reservoirs are full.
Well, thank you so much for everyone who shared on this question. We're about to transition into the second question, but before we do that, we noticed that in our little break, not many people moved seats. So we're having another chance for you to move around. We want you to talk to different people. So, no,
prettier than the last one. It's just a chance not to necessarily solve all the issues we're talking about today, but connect over things that we might all be working on, no matter what your job is. So if everyone could take a sticky and write one thing that they want the public to know about the organization, and one thing who not the city, want the city to know about the organization.
and then put them up on the board and chat. And we'll do the same thing with a little sharing and community.
Program manager with Water Now Alliance, so I'm actually not part of the City of Centennial or one of the water providers in the city. But we're a national nonprofit organization that is here to help, special districts, water districts, and municipalities advance their sustainable water solutions. So one thing I just wanted to share, like you all know about my organization is have a handful of brochures out front. And you can come take advantage of our Project Accelerator program where we can provide pro bono support to help you jumpstart your sustainable water projects. Look at our Tap Into Resilience website, which is really different resources and tools and how you can help scale up your sustainable water solution. Innovative funding and financing options to, get some of these water projects off the ground that you've all been chatting about. And more. So I'm here, I'm around, happy to chat more with anyone that's interested, but just wanted to share a bit more about my organization and hopefully you can share, check out our website and share some of the resources with your customers. So thank you.
We can do table by table.
Aaron, Denver Water Manager over our construction and maintenance side. Something that we'd like to public organization know is after we do main break, service leak, line replacement, that restoration is coming. We can't snap a finger and get it done the next day, so everybody would hope so. I mean, most residents don't care about the line replacement as long as they leave and they're walking and come back home, their water's turning back on. It's when are you gonna patch my yard, right? That's all they care about. And then also that we're hiring. Interns.
Just want to add, if there's anything you want the city to know, there's a lot of the city here that are gonna listen, so.
Where's right away? Where?
What do you need? Go get started.
I call for the annual maintenance permit. Either the hot, call you.
Yeah.
I need your number when we leave.
Someone else did that.
Does this table have anything?
Yeah, so I'm with the City of Centennial on the city council. And I know that we are just a brand new city and a lot of things happened 10 years ago. Like in the 40s, 30s, is what I'm talking. So now we find ourselves as a city trying to grow, develop and so forth. And we have all these water lines going through our city, which, we are not against that, but they don't really benefit the residents of the City of Centennial. Therefore, cities like Aurora, they're very aggressive. You have a lot of people. So when you are thinking in terms of putting water lines in areas that impact other communities, do you give any thought to what benefit that community that you're passing through would get for the placement of those water lines? And I know this is a difficult question because we're all geared to provide water. But at the same time, when you're passing through with water lines that go for miles and miles, is there thought given to what benefit those communities that are not receiving your water would receive? My council.
Okay, so I had more time to process the question because she asked me while she was sitting at the table. So I'm just gonna throw something out. There's no easy answer to your question. But the more I thought about it, a lot of the lines that are going through, like Aurora lines you mentioned specifically, Aurora partners with other entities through the WISE water infrastructure supply efficiency. It's like, wait, I got those backwards. with the South Metro Water Supply Authority, which is 13 of the South Metro suppliers down here. 14, thank you. Obviously, Executive Director of South Metro sitting right behind me, so let me just not make mistakes. But because of those partnerships, that means that we're able to actually supply water through those lines that are actually coming back to some of your citizens in Centennial, since you do rely on other water developers. So there are a lot of regional partnerships happening. So those lines, while it may seem like that line is only benefiting citizens in the city of Aurora and yet impacting the citizens of Centennial, there are enough partnerships that are bringing water back to your Centennial citizens that yes, there may be some impact, but there's a benefit to those lines too. Sometimes it's just hard to see what those benefits are. But I also think those regional partnerships are the answer to your question. You know, when you have water lines going through an area that's preventing development, have the conversation with Aurora Water in this case, because those are line specific, to let us know, you know, what's the impact. And then if there are solutions that we can come up with together, that's the way you're going to find them is having those conversations, just being candid, saying, hey, I have a problem. Is there a way we can fix it? And sometimes the answer comes back as, no, there's nothing we can do right now, but maybe there are answers. So until you ask the questions and really open it up, we don't know.
So thank you. Like I said, we're a young city. And these are questions that we haven't really got a chance to ask because the infrastructure is already in place. The plans have been laid. So thank you for that answer.
Yeah, and I'm gonna peek over at my other Aurora Water person. I don't know where you are. But I'm gonna see if Sarah wants to add to that.
Just a little bit, and John's absolutely right. The other thing to keep in mind about the specific pipeline we're talking about is that was built before any of this agreement was developed. It's not our preference to have, you know, two very large diameter water lines run underneath the tech center tiny corner either. So, but what we do now is ensure that we are aligning major water line infrastructure basically on where future predicted right of way is in the majority of new future greenfield developments. We don't end up in similar situation like that. And also work really closely with the community to ensure that we're aligning their plans for right of way. So I think communication and coordination, not only with other jurisdictions, but also with the development community is. And I think potentially all jurisdictions have gotten better at that. But yeah, that's.
I think the piggyback off of what Sarah said, I mean, look at the neighborhood that's going in off of Santa Fe and Titan Road. You got the two raw water lines from Aurora, you have Denver Water's 108-inch clean water, and they're building homes right up to it. So, I mean, those pipelines were put in 50 years ago, and now they're deciding to build around them. So, I'd have to say that it wasn't an issue back then, but it's becoming an issue now that the population is growing here in Colorado.
So can I ask a follow-up question to your information? You say you're building homes right up to.
We're not, we know.
But homes are being built.
Yeah, homes are being built.
Right. So what kind of easement is in that area or setback that allows that builder to go so close?
And that is what you're gonna have to ask the city, Douglas County, that what their building codes are for that. I mean, it's considered a green belt. I work for Aurora Water and the SOS line, so I know the line you're talking about. And I thought the same thing too. It's like, why would you build a home right here? It really just depends on the city. I mean, it's considered a green belt that our pipelines are going through, but it's really up to them what their codes are. We have our, you know, codes that you have to be X amount of feet away from it, but.
Well, I understand from Aurora that they are. Is it water rights that you are able to establish these You said, but we have to be, that's how your water lines, you have protected.
Yeah, there's easements on every pipeline. So there's an easement or a right of way for every pipeline. And she had asked about setbacks earlier, Sarah, and in terms of the distance from each of those easements or each of those pipelines is different probably based on how big the pipeline is. So
Yeah,
rampart lines are gonna have a specific setback and.
Well, the only control that we have as an agency is exactly as was mentioned, is just the easement width. Now, one of the things that happens when you're developing around that easement is that there's crossings of it within that neighborhood for utilities or what have you. And then that's when we get an opportunity to have a conversation to let them know what's in the ground under that easement, that it's not just a 12-inch water line. And then also these kinds of events where you have communication and coordination saying, this is very important to know about so that nobody wants to hit that on during construction, right? You want to make sure that it's protected. So just working with the agencies to try to make them understand the importance of it and to stay away from it. But we really only have control, like legal control over the easement that just goes beyond. But we can, I mean, if you want to, maybe after this.
Thank you all for jumping in on that. Like, definitely, if there's anyone here that you want to talk to more, I think that was our hope with this event, is to bring you all in the same place, so it's easier to make those connections. So we have one more question to go through.
Hey guys, I'm Leanne, and so I'll introduce the next question. This is more of like a workshop question, a lot of sticky notes, a lot of use of the board. But the question is, everybody on the table is going to introduce a problem you commonly face in your organization. Share this problem out with the group, write it on a sticky note, but then we want you guys to choose a couple of problems that resonate with your table. And brainstorm some solutions together. So this is a lot of collaboration. It's kind of bouncing off ideas of each other. So each person at the table posts a sticky note with a potential solution and discuss why it might work. We're gonna give you guys some time for that.
Sure, over here.
So after we can listen to
Councilman Don, that's right. So we had a really interesting conversation about stormwater. And why I think it's very laudable to maybe replace some of the bluegrass and what have you in your yard. The problem is if you replace it maybe with artificial turf or some other impervious surface, then now you put an additional strain potentially on stormwater system that may not have been designed to handle all of that. So that's kind of a dilemma. What do we do? And maybe there needs to be some level of standards to say, okay, you're gonna rip out your bluegrass and put artificial turf, astroturf or whatever. It better be pervious so that we have a way to get rid of that, any stormwater, particularly in view of what we've had for the last couple of months in May and June with, maybe an excessive amount of rain coming out of the sky. So there's good in getting rid of the, water usage, but there could be bad. And we also talked a little bit about gray water and could that be used for irrigation? That's maybe a dilemma as well, because now if we require that, that increases the cost of a house. And we're already fighting that whole thing. We're trying to keep housing as inexpensive as we possibly can. So there are a lot of trade-offs to be considered with all of this as we talk about different solutions. So that's it.
Thank you. Yes. Anyone else who would like to share any of the other people's?
So we ended up talking about wastewater primarily and the same type of thing when as elected officials, we hear from the development community how expensive tap fees are. But my question was, is the tap fee inclusive of tapping into the sanitation system? Are you doing a separate tap fee for that? Are they combined together? Where is that cost absorbed? And what we, the kind of the conversation was is how much, especially if you're converting commercial property into residential property area, you're taking, what might have been an office building that had a couple of toilets and a couple of bathrooms and a couple of kitchen sinks to all of a sudden, 20 units of people that are constantly flushing and taking showers. So it increases the burden and where does that get paid? And so that was a question Councilmember Moon had too, is like, when people pay that sanitation fee, what does it actually mean? How do you define it to people of what it's taking care of? And then how do you talk to the development community in places where do the developers absorb that cost up front when they're doing development? And again, does that add to the cost of the development? Or is it the rest of the ratepayers that are absorbing that into the system. And it's being used to upgrade all of that sanitation flow into wastewater treatment facilities, again, to be that long-range payment of how you keep those lines maintained.
Can I jump in on that?
Yes.
Kevin from Arapahoe County Water and Wastewater Authority. We do both sides. You know, tap fees, of course, are based on individual. We serve a lot of water-only residents and then combined units. And then we actually take wastewater from a neighboring district too. So, you know, all those things. And first of all, we're not for profit. We don't make a profit. We do a cost of service study every 5 years to make sure our rates are covering our costs. That's all. We're not looking to buy Bitcoin or anything. Know how to do that. I don't care. But anyway, so everything is there and, you know, Aqua, our rates are probably higher than a lot of people. But we also spent $150 million on renewable water. Buying into East Cherry Creek's treatment plant up north and that whole delivery system. And how many miles is that?
31 miles to our facility.
Right, so we're talking, you know, probably 10,000 horsepower pumps that have to run all the time to deliver the water here. And that's renewable water that's taken out of the South Platte. You know, we don't have Denver Water's reservoirs that we can draw out. So we're trying to wean ourselves off the straws in the deep aquifers because as you know, that's all diminishing and you can only have so many straws in that glass. So anyway, everything is based on what the customer is wanting. Vermilion Creek is annexed into our service area. 100 acres, 600 to 800 units are coming in. Aurora's got a pipeline that they want to put from Kings Point right through that development. I mean, we got tons of issues that we have to deal with. And we'd love to know as soon as possible, whenever any new development comes. You know, a couple of projects we did with East Cherry Creek because we tied into them up Liverpool and we coordinated. Where's Patrick? Where's the road guy?
Well, it was his predecessor, Mike, that was doing it.
And they held off on their project until we got our pipe into the road. And Travis, way back when, on the Arapahoe Road widening project, you know, we were looking to put a pipe in there. We're talking for 5 years. All of a sudden, the plans came out and it didn't show her a pipe. And we had to scramble and put 4,000 feet of pipe drawings together. We got coordinated with the project. It all worked out in the end, but communication, thank you, interns. It's communication between all the entities. So.
And to follow up on that, I think all of us, we try very hard to not charge existing residences and business for growth. Growth needs to pay its own way. And so that's why it's important for us to analyze new projects that are coming in. If that's gonna cause system improvements, well, the new customers will have to pay that usually upfront. And then the developers will get that back on the back end. But to tag existing residents and businesses to pay for new growth, we don't do that.
The citizenry really doesn't like that very much at all. I don't want to pay for.
Says our customer service rep.
Thank you everyone for sharing. This has been a very valuable conversation. I want to give it over to Ms. Melanie Ward for closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Leanne. I am so thankful to you all for being here. I think this has been a really great meeting, some really productive conversations. I would like to share that I hope this is just the beginning of those conversations and not the end. I've left some of my business cards on the table where you checked in, if anybody would like to take one. We also got your emails, so I'll be following up with a video of the recording of some of the presentations today. We also wanted to share that we do have this room until 1 o'clock. So if there's anybody else that you didn't get a chance to talk to, that you want to speak to, there's still plenty of time. You might see us scurrying around and cleaning up a little bit, but you're welcome to stay and have those conversations. And again, thank you so much for coming and joining us today.
Great one.